right, welcome to Season 2 of the Sporting Chance Podcast, your home for all things falconry and unconventional hunting techniques.
This podcast is brought to you by MountainStateFalconrySupply.com. Check out Heather McNeamer's store for your East Coast falconry goods.
And also, this podcast is brought to you by MidnightFalconry.com, the makers of the tightest braided equipment on the market. And let us not forget our boy, Seth Roy, at NorthMountainGoshawks.com. And if you'd like to support the podcast, visit SportingChancePod.com for all of your merch needs.
All right, Daryl, welcome to the Sporting Chance.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
We're honored to have you.
You and I both know this. We've talked about it in the past, but it's one of those small world things. You went to high school with my stepmom in Lenoir, North Carolina.
Yeah, Susan Leftwich, I believe.
Crazy stuff, huh?
Yeah.
Small world, man. That's crazy.
What are the odds? I don't even know how we figured that out. Maybe when I heard you're from Lenoir and I said, well, that's where my stepmom's from.
Oh, yeah.
So, Daryl, how'd you get started in falconry?
As you stated, I grew up in Lenoir, North Carolina, which is a little country town right in the foothills, headed up the mountain. And of course, we've had chickens and cows and horses and everything else. And my grandfather shot everything that came on our property. Turkey, vulture, red-tailed hawk, owl, weasel, stray dog. And I remember I was 10 years old, and there was a horned owl that I don't know how the thing was still alive, but half of its face was almost shot off. It was really, really damaged. It could barely stand and weave. And I remember, and it's amazing I didn't get footed, but I stuffed its mouth with Ritz crackers and Coca-Cola and potato chips and goodie powders. I probably killed the thing, but I thought I was doing it good.
Sounds like me on a Friday night.
Oh yeah. And so I had an interest then, and I saw red tails catch squirrels every now and then. I read my side of the mountain, and I always wanted to be a falconer. That's all I wanted to do. And then I saw a book, and it had a picture of a guy in a cornfield in Nebraska, and he was holding a peregrine falcon, and it was Tom Cade. And the caption said that he was head of the ornithology department at Cornell. And in 1981, I moved to Massachusetts, and I called down to Cornell, and I said, my name is Darryl Perkins. I want to be a falconer. I don't know how. And whoever the lady was answered the phone, gave me to Tom Cade. And I told him who I was. And he said, where are you? And I said, Massachusetts. He said, well, let me give you to somebody else that he may be able to help you. And so, and that was Vic Harderswick, who was head of the primate department at Cornell at the time. And I spoke to Vic, and I told him who I was and where I lived in Massachusetts. And his quote was, there ain't but two falconers in Massachusetts worth of shit. Ralph Buscemi and Tommy Giannakopoulos. Everybody else is just pulling their pud. So you get in touch with one of those guys.
That's great.
Yeah. So I did. I got in touch with Vic gave me his number, and I got in touch with Ralph Buscemi, who ended up being my sponsor. And all he flew was goshawks. Ralph graduated from high school, got an evening job at the paper mill, and flew his goshawk every day, 7 days a week. And in those days, there were pheasant in Massachusetts. So he took rabbits, pheasants, squirrels, and everything with an imprint goss. And, so I was hooked. at that point.
What year was this about?
1984.
Okay.
Yeah.
You got started pretty quickly as soon as you moved away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, that's interesting. So you didn't fly. You weren't a falconer when you were living in North Carolina.
No. I moved to. I moved in 1981. I moved to Massachusetts.
Okay.
And I called Cornell in 83, and that's when I got in touch with Ralph, and he became my sponsor, and I got my apprentice license in 1984.
Wow.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to get your first goshawk?
2 years to the day after I got my, not to the day, but 2 years after as soon as I became a general, I got my first goss. When I came, so now remember this was 1984, and Ralph had some 8mm footage. He had pigeons, and so he would turn the pigeons loose every day, and at the same time, the goshawk would show up, 2 or 3 trees back in the wood line, and come out and grab a pigeon, and it was like clockwork. And one day, he didn't take the pigeons. He didn't let them out. He walked out in the middle of this field and he tossed one. He came and got it. So there's footage of him coming out with a pigeon in his hand and holding it up, and a wild gosse taking it out of his hands. She wouldn't do it if he was facing her. He had to turn his back, and she would come in every year. Yeah.
Is that footage still around?
Ralph, I don't know where Ralph is now. He moved to Montana, but I'll have to ask some of the guys in Massachusetts. I've heard people speak of wild goshawks and stuff, and I always thought of that footage. It was 8mm footage, but it was clear.
I'd love to see that, Daryl.
Yeah.
I really would. Yeah, I get like people send me pictures of stuff they see on, social media, because they know that, that's my thing is goshawks, and like it's like they're like in people's backyards in some areas, like they just show up like a red tail would around, in Jersey or New York, but it's just a goshawk, just the area they're in, they're there. It's not that big of a deal to them.
Yeah, the first guys I got, there was a family it lived out in Western Mass in the Berkshires, and they went to Florida in the winter and came back home in the summer. And when they came back in late April or early May, goshawks had built a nest. They had a real long driveway and had to walk down it to get to their mailbox, and they were elderly couple, and they had got hit a bunch of times, so they called the state, and the state destroyed the nest. There were 5 young in the nest, and I got one of the tiersels.
That's awesome. Okay, good. All right.
Yeah. So that was the first goshawk?
Yeah, that was the first goshawk, Lonesome Dove. I caught. He was really nasty, and so I'd go to the mule, open the door, stick the glove in. He would bind to it. I mean, just slam into it. And I had real long jesses on it, so I could get control of it. But yeah, he was a handful, and I probably did everything wrong. But he caught ducks left and right, though. In fact, I ruined him because I thought the duck slips were too easy, and so I started giving him longer slips, and so I messed up his confidence. Before he would take a long slip and take the duck, but by me giving them longer slips and him not being successful, he figured out it wasn't worth his weight.
Mm.
So I should have just taken all those little popcorn slips that I could, and I would have had a steady bird for a long time. A close slip, he would take them, but outstanding flights like I used to get, I quit getting those. But that was my fault.
Do you feel like there were more ducks back then?
Oh, yes. In the cranberry bogs, they were loaded.
Okay, so that was my question. What kind of setups were you finding?
Cranberry bogs, salt marshes, and creeks in in the woodlands, in nurseries, and like it was glorious duck hawking there. I caught 46 ducks with the tiercel, and I got 35 with the hen one year.
That's good.
Can you paint a picture of what the cranberry bogs are like? Because that's a pretty specific thing, right?
Oh yeah, it's flat, and they're intersecting trenches all through it. And when they pick the cranberries, they flood those trenches. On every cranberry bog, there's also a pond, which is the source of the water, and a pump house. And the thing about the cranberry bogs is you can have someone on the other side, and he can direct you, because if you go there and you peek down the creek and you see the ducks, by the time you get out on the cranberry bogs and start approaching them, they've slid down the creek and turned into another trench. So
Okay, so it's like hills, berms, and then it drops down into the bog area, but then the bogs connect to each other.
Yeah, but the bogs are totally flat.
Okay.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Think of tic-tac-toe. That's what it looks like. Just intersecting trenches.
And then there's like a path to walk them, you know what I mean? Like in between the bogs themselves? Or it's just a giant.
No, you have to get out on the bogs.
Okay. So
yeah.
you're just
you
in
have
there
to
with
get
them.
out on the bogs. I'll send you a clip of me catching a duck on the bogs. Yeah, it's grainy. This was 88, I think it was. Before cell phones, but it was but you can see it's a neat setup. If you can, if you can get it, so you can get them pinched.
And are those cranberry bogs still around?
Oh Lord, yes, yeah, Massachusetts. Same for Wisconsin, the major cranberry producing states. They are. It's a great place to hawk ducks.
On the subject of Massachusetts, you sponsored Bruno, didn't you?
Bruno. Oh yeah, yes, yeah.
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 Well, Bruno DeDuca, Casey actually got to meet him at the Jersey meet this past year.
Oh yeah.
Good dude.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
he is.
So, for some reason, I had thought that you ended up in Maine. You stayed in Massachusetts,
Yeah.
or did you ever live in Maine?
No, but I hawk snowshoe hare in Maine.
All right. Yeah, we wanted to talk to you about the snowshoe hare.
Well, I went up to Maine with my sponsor, Ralph. I didn't have a bird. I had a red tail, but I didn't bring him. And and I saw the snowshoe hare, and they weren't running fast. And the guys would say, "Oh, we got one sitting." And so they'd be in a brush pile, and you'd look in there, and you'd see the black eyes. So when I got I got Atlanta. I got a finished goshawk from Vic Harderslick in '96, I think. And I made the statement to the guys in Maine that I'd stack these snowshoe hare up like cordwood.
You're gonna make Casey sick.
I thought I would, because they didn't panic, and it's not an all-out dash. But I soon learned that that's not the way it works. Those things are they're smart. There'd be a snowshoe hare in a brush pile, goshawk or red tail in a tree, 4 or 5 falconers surrounding the brush pile, and you ask the guy if you ready, and then we jump on that pile, and that hare take 3 hops out. The bird would commit, run back in. Didn't worry about the people. And soon as the bird committed and got into snow, it'd pop out the other side.
Slick.
Oh yeah, slick.
So how are you finding like the brush pile with the hare in it? Like that's my question.
Well, the area we were hunting in, one was loaded. and you just walk around and you look and you see a black eye. You just see one sitting. So they're very seldom where they're flushes where you didn't see the hare before it flushed. But it's not like hawking jacks where you're walking around and boom, there's a flush in the chase. And it wasn't like that at all. Most of the time, they saw where the hare was. And still, I don't know what the percentage is of success, but it was something. I never caught a hare off the fist. Never.
Okay.
My goss was always in a tree.
That makes sense for the, just the habitat, just little I know about the hare. It's rough country. Yeah.
And where are you expecting to see hares? Can you look at a habitat and say there's going to be snowshoe hares there?
Well, if it's an alder swamp, juneberries thicket, in the areas, and when we were in Maine, we weren't out in the wilderness. We were in industrial parks, and they speak of them as covers. So there was the Motel 6 cover, loaded with hares, FedEx cover. There were all these different areas when we went up there to hunt.
I'm writing this down.
Yeah, and so they'd take you to a good cover.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So like down here in New Jersey, New York, we would go to an industrial park and that's the places we'd look and we'd find rabbits there. Yeah. So up in Maine, that's where the hares are, I guess, because there's no rabbits up there. There's no cottontail.
Right.
Interesting.
It's funny how universal the business parks are or office parks.
Oh, they're great, man. They're great.
No matter where you go, that's the spot for rabbits.
Yeah.
Rabbits, squirrels, sometimes, and then they have some of them. They got ponds in the front for when it rains. The pot, they got like a drainage pond in the front. Yeah. If it's full, there's ducks in there. Office parks are great, man. You go there on a Sunday or a Saturday, you got the whole place to yourself.
Oh yeah.
Not condoning trespassing, but gotta do what you gotta do.
Oh yeah.
Generally, I don't think they care.
No, they don't. They could care less. They're just there to work.
Yeah.
Whoever owns that place probably lives in Palm Beach, Florida or something.
Yeah.
They're not worried about
it. So, Daryl, I have a question.
Sure.
So you went from that tiercel that you got from the nest that was destroyed, and then we jumped into European goshawks. Were you flying in '96? I believe you said. So were you flying goshawks that whole time?
Yes.
The whole time, you just like one after the other.
Yeah, I've never. I had a red tail when I was as an apprentice, and I got a Jerry Prairie from a falconer in Massachusetts, meanest, nastiest thing on earth. And I flew Apache coops, but other than that, I've only flown goshawks.
My kind of guy.
So, what is it about goshawks that speaks to you so much?
It's the bird itself, the thing that I like most. And for me, nothing floats my boat like walking in the jackfield with a goss on the fist that's fit and at weight. It's just the fuse is lit as soon as you walk into the field. I know you guys know she's up on her toes. Her head is snaking around. And me, I'm talking to the goss. I'm playing with a foot and saying, and she knows that something's going to happen at that point. And it's that I like more than anything else. Of course, the chase and the flight, but that's the that's the explosion afterwards.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for someone on the East Coast who wants to go get a jack?
Catch a ton of cottontails. If your bird is wedded to cottontails, it will. And pray that first jack is an easy one, because I've had birds that get to get beat up and they just wouldn't. I had a small North American Finnish goshawk, and parent reared, and God, she was nice in every way. Um, she got beat up on that first jack. I got to it, but she took a beating. And I think we were in Utah, and I decided I'm going to kill this bird, trying to get her to take jacks. Trying to get her weight down to take jacks. And I said, she's too nice of a bird. And um, so I went to the farmlands with a lot of machinery and caught cottontails left and right. But if you want to get jacks, you got to keep them off cottontails initially. If you go in the field with cottontails and jacks, and your bird catches a cottontail, she's gonna blink the jacks.
So you want the jack to be the first thing you see when you go out there.
Yeah. I mean, now if your bird hasn't had a lot of slips, there comes a point when you got to have slips. But the neat thing about places like Kansas is, you can get a cottontail slip every 3 or 4 minutes, and your bird is so crazy after that. You fly Bob White with a big female goshawk, and she doesn't catch it, but just that noise runs her crazy. You're gonna catch the next jack that gets up.
Right.
Moose, elephant makes no difference at that point.
Right.
With the goss.
Yeah.
What do you think the best state for jacks is?
Oh. Right now, I'd probably say Texas, but before the die off, it'd have to be Kansas, I think. Dodge, Liberal, Garden City. It used to be good. I mean, real good.
I've heard stories. I've never seen. I've been out there and I've seen jacks, but I've never seen these numbers of jacks that people talk about that have been there in the past.
Yeah. A field with three or four and a good goshawk is what you need.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a quick story. I went to Bill Johnson and I went to our first NAFA meet in 1994, and Ken Felix, who passed away this year, former NAFA president from Pennsylvania, was the president, and Mark Plater, from right outside of Philly, was the Northeast director. And the late Tim Kimball, who used to be president of NAFA, was from Pennsylvania, and he got his PhD, in goshawk ecology from Penn State. So Tim moved to Ellenwood, Kansas, and Bill and I was out there, and I had a passage goss that broke her neck in the giant hood in right out in Youngstown, Ohio. She was buried behind the Motel 6 there in Youngstown. But we went on to the NAFA meet, and I went out with Ken Felix and Mark Plater. I'd never seen a jack. And so we went to walk a field, and one got up at my feet. And I said, oh, gosh, I got to catch one of those things. And I told you that I met Vic Hardeswick over the phone. And a few years later, I was traveling to North Carolina, and I stopped at Mark Plater's house to spend the night. He had a video of a German goshawk catching white-tailed jacks, and the falconer was a guy named Bob Little from Indiana, and he was flying the German goss. And I said, oh, gosh, I got to catch a white-tailed jack, and I want to get one of those goshawks one day. And Mark said, well, I know a guy that's breeding them. And I said, who? He said, Vic Hardeswick. I said, Vic is the first person I ever spoke to in falconry. So I called Vic, and I told him who I was. He didn't remember me. And I said, Mark Plater said that you were going to be raising Finnish goshawks. And so I want to see about getting one. And he said, fucker, you ain't going to catch no goshawks. You guys just running around and we're wasting the time. You fuckers don't know what you're doing. And listen, and that was Vic. And so 2 years, I guess it was about a year and a half later, he called and said, yeah, I got a bird for you if you want it. Probably going to kill the fucking thing. And I said, yeah. He said, well, I'm going to ship her to Connecticut and you go pick her up. So I remember going to Connecticut. I went to the place and I opened that little dog kennel and I thought he had sent me a bird with bumblefoot. It was the biggest feet I'd ever seen on the, bigger than a red tail, bigger than a big jur. And Atlanta flew at, she flew at 46 ounces. And the first time I took her out west, I had given her probably 50 bag pheasant. And I was flying her anywhere from 46 to 50 ounces on this bag stuff. And, and she caught, I let her eat all she wants and then, put her up. She hooded perfect. So we go to the NAFA meet and I get in this field and we walk and walk and walk. No cottontails, no rabbits, nothing. I go to hood her and she threw a fit. I had to go to Home Depot and buy a cardboard box and build a giant hood because she wouldn't hood anymore at all. Now, she was used to being flown, catching something, and eating all she wanted. So at the NAFA meet, we walked all day and didn't get anything. Yeah, she was having none of that. For that whole NAFA meet, she would not hood at all. And I didn't catch a jack. I didn't catch a single thing.
Oh.
I didn't. The next year, I took her out there and I was flying her like 47 ounces. Jack got up. She flew over it, counted cool, touched it with her wings a little bit almost and broke off. So I got her down to around 42 and a half. And the next one got up. She rolled it way out there. And Mark Moglich is a breeder out in California. I think he's in Nevada now. But Mark had a bird from the same parents, but an earlier clutch. And he and I wrote a joint article in the first American Falconry magazine on finished goshawk.
Okay, I'd like to read that.
Yeah, it's not. I don't think you can get those early copies anymore.
Yeah, I don't know where you might be able to find somebody that has an old copy for sale.
Maybe a listener can reach out to me. I'd love to read that.
Or maybe Daryl still got the file.
File? They didn't have files back then.
What do you think? He wrote it with a goshawk feather and a piece of parchment.
Exactly. Yeah. In script. No, but Daryl, I have so many questions for you because we're we're touching on these different things, and I just want to, was that bird that you got from Vic? Was that an imprint or a chamber bird?
Imprint.
It was an imprint. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Those big feet were on a little baby.
Yeah. She was a legit 44, 45 ounces after I got her going. I caught whitetail jacks with her up in Minnesota.
Oh, that's cool.
And Minnesota, North Dakota. Yeah.
Well, this is the perfect transition for us to talk about this right here. Understanding goshawk.
Yeah.
Signed, personalized copy to me from 2020, way back when. So just let's talk about this book to start, and then we want to go into some different types of goshawks with you.
Okay.
So why did you write the book?
Well, one of the reasons I've always liked to write, and I was at a meet in Dodge, and I met this guy, and Mike McDermott, and so we were talking goshawks, and Mike said, "God, you should write this stuff down. You should write a book." And Mike and I became good friends, and then Mike wrote his book before um, I wrote Understanding Goshawks, but I had started writing it, um, and it was mainly going to be about passage goshawks. But then, as I had, I give you a little history. I raised one or two imprint goshawks every year for 10 years in a row. So I'd get two imprint goshawks from Vic, and I would raise them and take them back to him, and he would use them in the breeding program. And in addition to whatever bird I was flying for myself. So I had,
It's a lot of experience.
Yeah, a lot of experience. Yeah, I sure did.
So we wanted to get your perspective on the different, well, we'll just say, we'll generalize with 3 different ways you can get a goshawk. You can do an imprint, you can do a chamber, and you can go into the chamber and parent reared or wild. So since you had mentioned the imprinting, I don't really know how to ask this, but what do you think about, we're going to go through the list, but give us your thoughts on imprints.
Imprints, I quit flying imprints because I thought that I could get the same level of tameness and having them be socialized as an imprint, and not have to worry about tail feathers. Imprints that are raised right and are exposed to a lot of game, they have an advantage initially over the passage bird or the chamber raised bird because they're given every chance to succeed. They're given baggies and they're put in good situations, and so and the thing we consider as bad manners, screaming and mantling, that's natural if you look at the birds in the nest. Now you don't get that with parent reared birds or chamber raised birds or passage birds, and that's the thing that some people like. But I had imprints, and at the end, when I quit flying imprints, I thought I had it down pat the way that I like to raise them. I didn't, hand rear them as within the imprint goshawk with that technique. I got them in like 15 days, and so you got screaming, some more than others. Atlanta, in her first year, she screamed every wing beat, every one. And she would, I'd give her a bag pheasant. It'd be a long chase, and she would hide. So I would be looking for her without telemetry, trying to listen for the bells. And she would be there on that pheasant silent. As soon as she made eye contact with me, she started screaming. But I like imprints. I just don't have the time or patience personally anymore. And so it's easier for me to get one, 60, 70, 80 days, no matter how long. I got a bird 120 days from Vic. It's the largest finished bird I ever flew. And she was to be flown 1 year and go back to him for breeding. And I starved her down to get her to take a jack. And she caught that jack at 45 ounces.
Jeez.
That's how big she was. And I ran in, and she left the jack and got me in the face.
Ooh.
So I had to write it. I had to write it razor's edge. But she caught one cottontail, just one. She was just not dexterous enough. She was not agile enough for cottontails. She was a monster on jacks. and I didn't show her enough cottontails for her to get better. But in a woodlot, a 31-ounce North American female is the best goshawk for cottontails, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I agree with that.
That's about what your bird is, isn't it, Casey?
Yeah, she fluctuates anywhere from 880 to 1,000 grams. I mean, depending on the weather and stimulus. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'll go ahead.
Well, I was going to go back to the screaming about imprints because I hate the screaming. If it wasn't for that, I think I would like imprints a lot more. Where do you think that comes from? Because you had said in the wild they do it in the nest. Why do they stop it in the wild eventually?
Well, they have to stop it in the wild or starve. They're not sneaking up on a chipmunk or something with all that screaming. We humans extend the adolescence of our children. There'll be 30-year-olds living at home off of mama and daddy and stuff. And so with an imprints, we do the same thing. We extend their adolescence. They beg in the nest and they get fed. The one that begs the most gets fed the most. So that's innate in them to scream. Even the chamber raised or parent reared or passage goshawk, over time, they get conditioned to being fed. Last year, I was sitting here and I heard a goshawk, and I thought, well, there must be a blue jay. It wasn't. It was my parent reared goshawk. My daughter was coming out of the house every day with quail in her hand, taking it down there, putting it in the shoe. And when I started reducing her, I heard her scream. It was only one time, but so it does happen. Now my imprints, Atlanta screamed horribly. But after my last three did. I didn't. I think it's impossible to try to in my opinion, hide food from a goshawk. They're too smart. They're going to know that you're the source of the food. So,
Yeah.
so I never did bring them to the food or do any of that. They just had an abundance of food around them at all times. And then I gave them baggies, from the time that that they could fly, and they wouldn't be serious because their weight was up. And I kept it up because I know that if you drop the weight too quickly, you're going to get screaming and you're going to have it for the duration. Bringing it back up is not going to get rid of that vice. So you got to be really careful in reducing them. Especially it's, in the warmer months when you start flying imprints. See, the passage birds don't go through that.
Right. That's good stuff. What's your opinion on hacking?
Well, I hacked Tircel goshawks, 3 of them, before it was popular or written about and talked about. And I did it because my sponsor did it. When I would come up to Ralph's and I would ask him, "Where's the goss?" And he said, "She's in the woods somewhere." And he would get his lure out and swing it, and she would come busting out of the trees and slam into that lure. And she would eat, and he would pick her up and put her in the chamber. And the next day he would take her out and do the same thing. So I turned my Tircel loose. But he was at the brancher stage, so I had to climb up in the tree and get him a couple of times. And at the time, with the lack of telemetry, the risk was just too great. You had to go through hoops to get a goshawk, and I didn't want to risk it. But I think now with with telemetry and you can know where they are at all times, it gives them a chance to hone some skills that the passage bird does naturally. landing in a tree, landing on a bush. Imprints don't know anything about that. They're usually crashing into something and grabbing on with their feet. Well, hacking takes care of all that
Yeah.
because they branch, which is a natural occurrence in the wild. Especially the tearsels. They're not standing in the nest with those big hens when mom and daddy brings food. No, they're getting their little butts out of there, so they're bouncing all over the place. So I think hacking does. I think it's a good thing psychologically for them, and it does give them practice with stuff like being in trees and landing and sitting quietly and doing the things naturally that the goshawks do.
Yeah, my mentor, Phil Elia, my sponsor, and he, goshawk mentor. He described it to me. And he just said, you know how many hours you'd have to fly your bird, each day after work to, get the same equivalent of hours of flight time hacking your bird for one full day would get, and that kind of opened up your eyes. Cause it's like, you're trying to enter your bird, you're trying to get it fit at the same time. And it's like, if you could get like at least the fitness part and some of the, the body, the bird learning its own body and learning how to land, like you said.
Yeah.
I mean, you're getting, when you start trying to actually enter it on game, you're already like that much far ahead. The bird's already probably seen game, has already flown up into trees, chased stuff, hopefully.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's already like, and then you just take it to the field and start entering it. And it's already like, oh, I saw one of those before. I know how to do this kind of, and then you kind of hone it in and you're just that much far ahead.
Right.
Of where you would be not hacking and just waiting and then just trying to enter later.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. I just think and you've been around for a long time. Like, I'm sure you have you heard of any horror stories during the hack from other people that are calling you and talking to you?
Oh yeah. You have those. If you're hacking, you're risking, winding up in somebody's yard, horned owls, red tails, kids with BB guns. You're risking all that kind of stuff, but the benefit is worth it, provided that your bird doesn't, provided that you don't lose the bird.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, but my sponsor, he lost the bird once, but it stayed out all night and horned owl got it.
Yeah, it's always the great horned owls.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I'm asking this as someone who's never hacked a bird before. How big of an area will your bird cover? Like, can you put it, if you put it in a stand of trees? I've heard people say their bird will just kind of hang out in like the same 6 trees all day.
I would direct you to Steve Swartz, if I'm saying his name right. If you've seen, he's in Canada, but I think it's Canada, it may be Idaho. But if you see the birds that he hacks, they're totally wild. They fly across the canyon sometimes, and and come back. I'd love to get one of those.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, but if you look on Facebook for Steve Swartz, you'll see some of the stuff he's done with hacking, and it's a completely wild hack. There's no taking in at night and stuff. It's
oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a whole nother level of hacking that I'm not sure I'm ready for.
Well, he's a breeder, and so he's got his replacement right there. So he's
I got a buddy in Poland, and I'm not going to say who he is because I don't think they're allowed to. But so they go out and do what we do. They find nests, they climb them, and they pull their birds, and then they all drive to, I guess they have a buddy that has a really nice piece of property, and they do kind of like what Moglich does in the desert with those jeers.
Yeah.
And the platforms, and they do that, but in Poland up in the mountains, and they set up like this beautiful, looks like a giant screech owl, box, but huge.
Yeah.
And they put all their imprints in there when they're of age, not like, and then they hack all of them from there.
Yeah.
And then they mark them or whatever. And then when the hack's over, they all retake their birds and go back home and start entering them. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool system that they have. What's your opinion on, this is another thing actually. What's your opinion on, I mean, it just makes sense logically, but I don't know if you have any insight on it. The whole idea of you raise my bird, I raise your bird, and when they're hard penned, we switch. You heard of that?
No, I haven't. I've heard of this though. I've heard that I know for a fact that birds that just got too aggressive and they give them to someone else and they're not as aggressive. So I guess it's the same concept. But
I'd be too tempted to just do everything wrong and then give it to Casey and say, "Here's your bird, buddy."
I'll call Daryl. Me and Daryl will fix it. We'll fix all the problems.
The thing with imprints, the beauty of the imprint is the lack of fear. Right. Yeah. But in the absence of fear, there can be aggression. So, with a passage bird, it would probably leave, or fly away from you or something. The imprint may disagree with you handling the kill.
Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a whole different set of skills. Oh, and this is just for the audience. If anybody has a very aggressive goshawk, please reach out to me or Aaron, because we will take it off your hands for sure. Yeah.
All right, Daryl, let's talk about chamber raised / parent reared.
Okay.
So you had mentioned earlier a couple times Vic Hardiswick, and the individual I got my bird from, Lance Christensen, he was Vic's partner for a long time.
Yes. Yeah. And got Vic stock.
Right. They kind of pioneered this whole thing, didn't they?
Well, yeah. And the reason is, it's understandable from the breeder standpoint. See, it's more economical for the breeder to hatch a bird and get rid of it in 15 days. He doesn't worry about anything else. He's got his money, the bird is gone. You parent rear a bird, and you got an investment in those breeders, and then you get a big hulking female that one day gets a wild hare up her butt and kills daddy. And so now you're setting back a whole breeding season. So you surely just can't get another male and toss him in with that female. So I understand where the breeder wanting to do an imprint and get rid of it. But the chamber raised bird, you pick up the bird at 30 days. As soon as they're able to pull their own stuff, and you put them in the chamber with a bunch of other goshawks. So they're certainly not imprints, but they're away from the parents and they're in there with the other ones. And there is some competition and squabbling amongst those, and because of that, they are acting more like imprints a little bit. And the parent reared bird is in there with the parents, and you got to get them out, before the females are able to do any damage. But the longer you can leave them in there, in my opinion, the closest to a passage bird as you can get. And when you get that parent reared or chamber raised bird, a lot of folks have said that the passage bird or the parent reared bird lacks the fire of the imprint, and that you have to manage their weight too harshly, for fear of losing them. And I disagree with that. That certainly can be the case. But the parent reared bird, I found that guys reduce them too early and they reduce them, too quickly. With the imprint, you're going to have it catching game as soon as it's humanly possible. As soon as that bird's able to fly and do something, you're going to try to focus all that aggression and all that goshawkness at some quarry. Well, with the parent reared bird, if you try to do the same with it, you have to reduce it down lower than what you need to. See, I anybody can get a bird to start it down until he chases something. But the trick is to try to get that bird to be the same thing as it would be in the wild. We can't mimic that with the limited amount of time that we fly them. But you trap a goshawk or red tail in October, and unless it's got some kind of disease, it's muscled up, it's got big pecs, it's flying every day and eating, and eating stuff to sustain itself. So with the parent reared bird, if you reduce it too quickly, it's gonna morph into an imprint, and it's not gonna have the confidence nor the researchers to do the really, really good flights that goshawks are capable of.
That was very well said. I heard, and I don't know if this is true, and a friend of mine tried it. That was a unique situation. Didn't really work out. But he tried hacking his parent reared bird. Have you heard of anybody doing something like that? Getting it tame enough to get a recall on it, and then kind of putting it out and letting it fly around and try to gain some experience?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
I wouldn't. I know that.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I think they're a little too expensive to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, listen, he tried it, and he did it for like a week or two.
Yeah.
And then it was 3 miles away, and then it was over. And it wasn't a very good situation. It was just a whole situation, so it didn't really turn out too well. I just wanted to know if that was like something that you've heard of before.
No.
Okay. All right. So I won't try that. I won't try that.
You should tame hack a passage red tail, Casey, and let us know how it goes.
No, there's no need to do that. There's no need to do that.
Daryl, I found with my parent raised finished bird, she was super tame. Casey can attest to that.
Yeah.
But she couldn't be pushed as far as an imprint. Now that could be from my lack of experience. I'll admit it. I'm not the most experienced goshawker.
Describe pushed.
Well, me and Casey go out. He could catch 6 rabbits, and I could catch 1 or 2. And it's not because she lacks the ability. It's just because she has that little bit of wildness to her. She's very tame, very calm, but she's not going to accept getting something taken from her over and over again.
Oh, then that's handling.
Well, I don't.
All right. All right. Well, we got what you're saying, Daryl. I know what you're saying.
I know you can't resist the opportunity to bust my balls here.
You got it, Daryl.
I handled the bird well, but I just don't think. Well, let me put it this way, Daryl. I don't think that you could go out and stack cottontails on your truck bed with the chamber rays like you can an imprint.
I disagree. I disagree 1,000%. Not only. Listen, I'll say this. We'll just talk about energy. It takes a little bit of energy to mantle. It takes a little bit of energy to scream. It takes a little bit of energy to look mean. Right. None of which you will get with a chamber raised or parent reared bird. I can.
What do you think that is?
My goshawk can catch a jack, and I can hand her a tidbit with my fingers and call her up to the fist and go get another one and repeat that. And when that ends would be the point where she's got a crop from me giving her the food. There won't be any resentment.
All right.
At all. But here's the thing though. But that takes patience. Now I'm different now than when I was younger. Because when I was younger, the thing that mattered most is head count.
That's right.
And whatever I could do. Now, don't get me wrong, head count is important because head count is the proof that what you did is right. Now, there's varying degrees of right, but the guy that's not catching anything, he has no room to talk at all.
Right.
In my opinion. So catching stuff is proof that's in the pudding. And you listen, and it's all a matter of preference. I went to the I hadn't flown Mercedes in 5 years, and I went to the meet in Lubbock, and I caught one jack. I was there for 3 days. I caught one jack. I could never get in another field, and I kept her down to the point that on the last day I went out there, she was on the perch, breathing, shoulders moving up and down, clearly signs of Asper. I had voriconazole with me, so I started treating her right off the bat, and she made it through. But my point is, even after having not been flown in 5 years, and I rushed getting her weight down to where she would take that jack lower than what I normally would have. Um, she still didn't resent, me taking her off that jack.
All right.
First thing she'd caught in a 5 year
So,
thing.
so Daryl, I gotta defend Aaron here because I know he's like, he's seething inside. He's like, his emotions are high right now. He's just remembering what you said.
Cut out.
Yeah, and so I'm just gonna say a quick little, for instance, and then ask your opinion. So I used to let all my imprints eat off their carcass. I mean, I always let every single one eat off of a dead carcass when they're just standing and walking around and stuff like that. But once they started like catching bags and stuff, I would let them pluck. And I tried this with my North American and it actually worked. So meaning when she would catch a baggie, I would let her pluck, maybe take a couple nice bites, and then I would trade her to her lure, just her standard meal, and just trade her. So just getting her in the mindset that she catches, she gets a standard reward. Catches, standard reward, catches, standard reward. So when we started hunting, for her to jump off the rabbit after I dispatched it to a standard trade-off piece, she didn't even think twice about it. She wasn't defensive or anything like that.
Right.
But the ones that I would always let crop up and I would be one and done. And that if I tried to do more than one, it was like this, this production to try to catch more than one with those particular birds.
Oh, absolutely.
So my question, and in defense of Aaron, like, do you think it was maybe something that was going on early on in the training that he could have planned for in the future that would have made it easier for him to catch multiples with that bird?
Yes.
So what kind of things would that be? See, Aaron, I got you, bro.
Yeah.
Well,
the kind of things that would be to mimic what you're going to do in the field. So you go out with 3 chuckers or 4 chuckers or 2 chuckers and a pheasant, and you do the exact same thing. So I believe that goshawks can become accustomed to anything, but it takes time and forethought to try to plan that. Now I used to let my birds crop up. They catch something, that's the end. They get a big old bulging crop, and that was the end of it. And now I don't let them get that big bulging crop because I'm going to do all the feeding. Now sometimes I've opened the jack up and let her eat a little bit of it, but still I'd end up tidbitting her so that she kept that in her mind.
Yeah.
And for 2 reasons. One, I'm a wuss and don't like to get footed. And that, I believe, prevents footing and prevents carrying. See, if it's drug 10 feet, in my mind, that's a carry. She might as well picked it up and flew over the mountain. I don't want her to move with it.
Right.
And listen, and that didn't happen overnight because I've had to run them down, running with something and step on the carcass and everything else. So so don't think that Day one, I had goshawks that were well mannered and did this. No, I made every mistake that everybody else has made more because I had more opportunities to make more mistakes. And the thing is, it is only a problem if it's compared to something else. And and I don't do it. So if Casey's bird cage 8 rabbits and your bird cages 3, he doesn't have a better bird.
Yeah, I do. My bird's better.
Yeah,
no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, but it's just preference. I would love to be in a place that you could get slip after slip after slip. So that's the only thing that matters is if you're able to get slips, then at the end of the day or at the end of the season, you should have a bitchin' goshawk.
Right.
And for me, a bitchin' goshawk beats anything else.
Agreed.
Yeah. Hard to beat it.
Aaron, you were going to say something.
All right. So this was my experience with my bird. The proof's in the pudding too, and there's other people who saw it. So
no, she was a phenomenal, like calmer than any Harris hawk you'll ever see, following in the trees better than just a phenomenal bird. So we're just joking around.
I'm proud of the bird I made, and it broke my heart when she died. She took game in front of everybody we went out with, but this is usually how it went. Is we would go out, and this could be where we're hunting at too, Daryl, because you're, as someone who lives in North Carolina, what we're dealing with here. We'd go out, we might work for 30, 45 minutes before we catch something, maybe longer. We'd go as long as it took. She catches something, I trade her off. She had great manners on the kill.
Mm-hmm.
I trade her off, and I don't have my spreadsheet in front of me that shows me what she did, but sometimes we could double. I don't know that we ever tripled, but it rarely ever came together for a double after that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that has to do so much with her or me as a falconer, which is entirely possible, or if it was the situation and the game numbers or, those other pieces.
Well, it's hard to pinpoint. It could be a combination of all those things. But if she took one head of game with style, the way you wanted her to, and then you were able to take her off of that without an hitch, and she didn't put the same effort out, with the next opportunity she had, the difference to me is that you were flying a finished goshawk, and that's the way she exhibited her displeasure. A North American bird would have been chittering and hanging upside down and spinning around in a circle.
Mm.
And your bird, rather than do that, she just couldn't get over that one, the one kill. And because you did such a phenomenal job with her, the extent of her expression was just that she just didn't double.
Hmm.
If you had done a half butt job with her, she would express that more aggressively. And so I don't think that's any knock on anything that you did. I think you probably did a real good job. And because you did, and because the nature of the finished bird versus the North American bird, and she just expressed it differently. I told someone one time, we were at a NAFA meet, and I had the first Siberian bird bred in the New World. I got to fly it. Vic Hardswood made 2. He had Anador. I caught a duck with her in February. She was over 50 ounces.
Dang.
And she had her brother flew at 34 ounces.
Yeah, that's what I want.
Yeah,
that's big.
They were monsters. And so I went out. I think we were in Iowa, And of course, a lot of guys wanted to see her. They'd never seen a Siberian. And she was a beauty otis. She had big, thick tarsi, big, thick feet. And I took her out of the box, and she made a little peep, just like a chicken. You could barely hear it, like a biddy. You barely could. It was barely audible. And I put her back in the box, and I said, "Well, she's not ready." Now I heard whispers. He won't fly his bird in front of anybody, and he's afraid the bird won't do anything. I told somebody, I said, those little peeps that she made is the equivalent to a North American bird hanging upside down, cacking and spinning around like crazy. That's the difference in this Siberian goshawk and a North American bird. And you know, and those little subtle differences causes a lot of birds to be lost or even die from weight mismanagement.
That's yeah. I don't. Yeah, anybody who talks like that about another falconer, especially somebody who's flying a goshawk, it just becomes kind of clear that they don't fly goshawks, because there's times when your bird is just. I could put my bird in the truck and just driving to the field, hearing her in the box.
Yeah,
I'm like, this is gonna be a bad day.
Yeah,
or I'm like, this is gonna be a good day. Like you can almost tell, because you already know what's gonna happen based off the way she's acting.
Yeah.
So anybody who's like, he doesn't want to fly with people, it's like, if he pulled her out, it probably would have been a shit show. Yeah, so he put her back in there. He's like, let's give her a little time. Probably let's let her reset, let her calm down, let her sit quietly in the box, fly another bird, and pull her out later. Big deal.
I learned to listen to my instincts with goshawks. I just like all of us have been there. You pull the bird, you open the box, and she's doing something, and you just tell yourself, I probably shouldn't fly her, but it's 2 p.m. on Saturday, and I got nothing else to do. You cut her loose. Next thing you know, you're trying to get to the other side of the highway to get her down.
I say my days of chasing goshawks all over the place they're long gone.
As soon as you get the slightest hunch, something's up, you go, nope, not today.
I think that's actually beneficial, because what does Phil always said to me, like, my bird was doing something this year that was pissing me off, and just Phil just said, like, he's like, why are you like so obsessed with pushing it like that? I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, if she's acting like that, just put her back in the box. And it's like, I'm like, well, yeah, I could, but like, I want to catch something. He's like, well, that's your problem. He's like, you're getting in your way. You want to catch something so bad that you're not gonna, like, don't give her the opportunity to present that behavior. Right. So if Daryl pulled his bird out and this thing is chittering and hanging upside down or bumping off and not taking slips and blinking slips and there's people around, that could do a lot more damage than just closing the door and not flying her and flying her the next day.
Yeah.
Like, because then now when you pull her out the next day, now she's in a better frame of mind. She's slightly lower, and then the whole situation is going to be much better.
Yeah.
So you're going to do. It's just, and I'm talking like I don't do that. Aaron, right at the Jersey meet.
Oh yeah.
It was like damn near freaking dark out, and I'm just like, I'm telling my dog, I'm like, Freddie, get in that hole, get in that hole. And we were just, I wanted to catch something so bad, I just would not stop. And Aaron, he was a good sport. He kept up with me. I could tell he wanted to call it, and I was like, one more hole, let's go.
A little important to go get to.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, So I'm the worst with that, but it's true.
Daryl, that's very interesting. The insight you provided about how she's displaying some sort of displeasure because she's well mannered. She's displaying it in that she's not given 100%. Yeah, that's interesting. I never considered that. All right. So I don't know how much experience you have with this, but I want to ask you about wild caught / passage goshawks.
Would be my preference above all others.
Mm.
I think the wild birds is the most pure form of falconry you can do.
Now I have seen 32-ounce goshawks take jacks, and those that are exposed to them regularly are capable of doing that. I would like my jack dead if it's caught 100 yards out. And for that, I need a big old hulking fin or Siberian bird. And I said all that to say that were it possible for me to get passage birds of any size, then I would see no need other than maybe the novelty of flying a Finnish bird or a Siberian bird.
Hmm.
Yeah, but if I could get a passage bird that was you got a clean slate, provided it's healthy, um, landing in trees and all kinds of nonsense that you have to go through with imprints and to some extent chamber raised bird. All that's null and void with the passage bird.
Yeah.
And it's already the fact that you trapped it. It's already passed. The first test. Those that didn't pass it are long gone. They starved, got down on the ground, and got eaten by a fox or horned owl or something. Starved. So,
Yeah.
What do you
But
think about the health of them? We know people who've caught healthy passage birds that come down with Asper
well,
pretty quick.
Asper is out there, and I've never treated the passage bird prophylactically. We didn't have voriconazole wasn't in existence, and sometimes you trap a bird and it's seeding off the fist that very first night, and then it's dead in 3 days. I think that bird already had it, and the stress of being captured and hooded and handled brought it on. But I think that the number one problem with goshawks is stress. And so my whole goal with a passage bird or a chamber raised bird or even imprint is to eliminate as much stress as I can. And the way to do that is to properly man them, to really man them up.
And how would you do that?
If you look at um, on TikTok and YouTube and TV programs, you see people starting colts. Buck Branahan, um, he he did that colt starting thing. So they're out there with flags and those kind of things. Well, I took I think I sent you a video of me
yes.
hosing the bird off, watching it. Okay, well, that was a chamber race bird, a parent reared bird. And when I got her, I hooded her, brought her in the house, took the hood off. And of course, she's wanting the bait and everything else. I put my hand on her back so she can't move, got her pressed up against my chest. And as soon as she do that, I take a trash bag and I'm holding it out away from me and I'm flinging that thing in the air. Okay, in about 5 days' time, and it's not nothing magical because they do it with horses. Um, I could put her on the perch, and I got video of that someplace. And I walk up to her, and I'm beating the heck out of her with the trash bag. She pays no attention to it. So all that does is, it eliminates stress. It, with the passage bird or a parent reared bird, I say that I bring them in the house. The kids don't have to be quiet. I want the ceiling fan on, the TV going as loud as it can. And so there's a room full of monsters. And pretty soon, I'm the least worrisome of all the
Hmm.
monsters in there because I'm holding her close to me and she's looking around at everything else. And I got my hand on her back so she can't move. But, in pretty short order, she becomes accustomed to that. If I want to look at my bird's mouth at the vet, I grab her by the beak and open it up because she's used to that. I handle them as rough as I can. Now, an imprint may not
Right.
appreciate that. And an imprint will show its displeasure in aggression. So you can't do that. You can't do that with an imprint. With an imprint, you have to be really subtle. But with a chamber race bird, or parent reared bird, if you do that to them, you get them dog tamed so that if something happens in the field, it doesn't upset them.
Okay.
Any goshawk at any time, I don't care how well manned it is or whatever, some little switch can flip, in the field, and that happens, and guys start uh, not making excuses, but well, she never acted like that before. Her weight is down, and I say, man, you don't have to explain that stuff to me. This is a goshawk, and this happens, and you'd rather not happen in front of 10 people, but that's the nature of the beast. So don't worry about that.
When you're agreed 100%. When you're I want to go back to the manning description. So are you easing into that, or are you just pulling the hood off and just
no easing into it. Now you got to make sure that if you're getting a chamber raised bird, it's not starved. Whenever you get it, so you're not going to do it when it's in a house that's 100 degrees. But when the hood comes off for the very first time, I have some food on the fist, with feathers, and I'm making little noises with my mouth, and I'm moving that around. And if she looks like she's going to bait, I get my hand on her back, and press her cross. And as soon as she looks down and takes that first pluck or takes that first bite, then I start plucking. And that's the basis of tidbitting and not being footed and being able to hand feed your bird and control what they eat, in the field. I've never had an opportunity to test it with 10 or 15, jacks in the field, because I've never caught 10 or 15. Uh, the most jacks I've caught is 3. And I was just greedy for me in that day, because a good slip would be good enough. But back to the manning part, as soon as they start plucking and stuff, they're still nervous, but they're nervous about you. But they ignore that hand this plucking, and they start eating, and then I put my whole hand over it, so they have to eat between my hand, and then while they're doing that, I don't let them tear the meat off themselves. They bend down, and I've already pulled a little, plucking and feeding with my fingers, and I'm shouting to the top of my voice, "Go Steelers, Tar Heels, whatever."
Yeah.
And I have, and I don't allow the grandkids or the dog or anybody to be quiet or tiptoe uh, around.
Okay.
And there's a balance, because in the beginning, fear is on your side, and they're afraid of everything, the ceiling fan, the TV. But as time goes on, they start ignoring that stuff, and and focusing on you.
Okay. Now, would you do the same technique with a passage bird?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
The first bird I ever did it with was a passage bird, and let me say this: doing it that way is not something I invented, because I read about it in one old falconry book. I can't remember, but the phrase was, to tame her, keep her in the midst of things. So they'd have the bird in the living room with a lot of people walking around. Um, but I got the idea of trying that from watching the Buck Branahan start colts. So they got a sack, they got a flag. In 10 minutes, the horse is ignoring that stuff.
Yeah, I've seen little clips and videos of that kind of stuff with horses. Yeah.
Yeah, so I tried the same thing with a trash bag and and the goshawk. Now, does it help them catch anything? No, but it keeps their stress down, and less stress, the more weight the bird can have, and the more weight, the stronger it is. And of course, I'm not talking about fat and sluggish.
Right.
I mean having energy.
I follow you. So now, for the people out there that are, it's kind of like a new. I don't know if it's new, but it's like a phenomenon where it's like zero fear, zero baiting. The people, like, it's like the strobe kind of people. I've never done that before, but there's a whole contingent of people that are all about like zero stress of the bird. They wear gloves and masks when they take the birds off the trap. They immediately put a hood on it. It doesn't see, and it doesn't get the opportunity to bait. They don't allow any fear to present itself. It's all in a controlled environment. Like what would you say to because like with a passage bird, maybe not a chamber bird, but for a passage bird, my initial thought with you describing your manning technique, I would think that's going to overload the bird with a lot of stress, and that could potentially have some sort of an illness to come up, or like an asper to present itself, like something like that. I've never flown a passage or a chamber bird, so I don't know. I'm just trying to give, both sides of the argument,
Oh, yeah. I'll say this: whatever works. So if you use a strobe light or you seal the bird, from my perspective, it's all unnecessary.
Okay.
Because and what I do does overload. Now, thus far, uh, no bird is. I mean, you got to use common sense.
Okay.
No bird is overheated. One thing is, um, I prevent a lot of baiting. See, I got the bird's feet held tight. Its chest is up against mine, and my hand is on the back. So there's it's not possible for the bird to bait.
Interesting.
Now it's under a lot of stress, and and the goal is, as soon as I do that, my hand is up and I got the bird's head closed in my hand, and that's the basis of hooding. I hand hood them long before the hood is on. See, I think birds get hand shy, and then that equates, to the hood, especially an imprint.
Right.
And true, you can get them tamed so that you don't need a hood at all. My preference with Atlanta was just to ride her in the back of the truck, but there's just too much slices going all over the place. I couldn't handle that. But I in the there's a passage goshawk page, and I see different techniques. They're going really slow, keeping the bird in a dark, quiet place, and I think, oh man, you could accomplish this, at a much faster rate. The point is, what's the purpose of the faster rate? To be able to say that I can man a goshawk in 3 days and it takes you a month. That means nothing. My goal is to have a fit hunting partner for the duration, and so I'm not doing it to be able to say I caught a head of game in 18 days.
Right.
And the other guy can't, so I'm a better falconer than them. Nah, I care nothing about that. I care about having a hunting partner that I like being around.
Right.
That's number one. I don't want to be walking with my eye on it or right or leaning back.
Yeah.
None of that. And I think it's best for the bird. All of my goshawks, this one included, they spend their summer laying down 60 or 70% of the time.
Yeah.
I can look out there now and I can't find her, and she's in a corner, laying down.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, so that's less stress. There's no stress with that.
Yeah, if your bird's laying down and it's not sick,
yeah,
that's it. Your bird's chill.
Yeah. But now, don't as far as stress goes, I tell my goshawk every day, now you got the opportunity to be hooded like a lady, but you are going to be hooded. And and
that's funny.
that's and that's the end of that. Somebody said, "Well, you're not a good falconer if you can't hood the bird." Well, I can hood her. She can stand up and be hooded, or she can lay in the crook of my arm.
Right.
But the hood's going on, and that shouldn't be an overly stressful thing. And that's my point. If you overload them and get them so that these things aren't stressful, then if you got to go to the vet, if they have to look in their mouth or anything,
Yeah.
it's nothing new to them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. That's really good stuff. I mean, me and my bird, this current 3/4 Siberian, 1/4 Finnish. I mean, we had fist fights this year. It's great. We're she ain't scared of nothing. So we're she's not fazed by anything. We had a couple of situations with the dog where I had to get a little physical with her, and she could care less now. I could do pretty much whatever I wanted to her. And she's not a North American, obviously. If I, half the stuff that went on with that bird and my short fuse, then the bird would be ruined. But she's better for it. I can literally do whatever I want to her on the kill. Doesn't care. No aggression. No. I mean, she screams and mantles, but I can shove my hands in her feet, in her face.
Yeah.
Reach my hand. Zero of that. Like, she just doesn't care.
Right.
But each bird is different. So I'd love to transition, Aaron, if you do, into the difference between, because Daryl, this is like a conversation that's like highly contested and debated. And I mean, I know that there's differences, but some people are convinced that a goshawk is a goshawk no matter what. Let's talk about it. I mean, we could talk with the easy one, the North American, like, or you could lead it, Daryl. Like, what do you see in differences between all the subspecies? What are your thoughts on the differences between them?
Oh, that it's twofold. Yes, goshawk is a goshawk. Is a goshawk. They're quick, muscled, kinetic beasts, and that's what we love about them. On a whole, the Eurasian goshawk is larger than and somewhat calmer than the North American subspecies. The That's not to say that you cannot have an imprint Finn, Siberian bird, Austrian, German, or whatever that can't be a handful based on handling. But there is a difference. A North American bird is not going to tolerate the stuff that a Finnish bird or a Siberian bird will.
Why do you think that is, Daryl?
I don't know the reason. I have had this discussion with some folks, and that some folks say that it's the latitude. The more northern birds are larger. They're in a more remote area. The North American bird is certainly not urban, but with parks and things of that nature, its contact with people is a little more different. And the North American bird is clearly the most aggressive at the nest.
That's interesting. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, they're just more. The Eurasian birds are calmer.
Daryl, do you think that, because somebody said this to me, I don't know, it was like something like Ben Woodruff would say. Do you think that the thousands of years of falconry interaction, do you think that has anything to do with why they're calm, or do you think that that's just like kind of like something fun to think about? You know what I mean? Because if you think about it, in Europe they've been flying those goshawks for thousands of years.
Yeah, they have, but the goshawk was wiped out in the UK, and it was falconry birds that got loose that repopulated.
But that's my point.
Yeah, exactly.
So do you think that's why?
It could be.
Okay.
That's an interesting aspect of that. And then I don't know. An odd thing that I noticed in finding nests in Massachusetts was that almost to a nest, every goshawk nest that I went to, there were red shoulders nesting within a mile or so of the nest. I would think that wouldn't be tolerated. I have absolutely no reason, uh, why that is as aggressive as North American goshawks are.
Yeah.
But but the North American bird, I don't know why. Essentially whether it's close proximity or lack of close proximity with people that causes them to be more aggressive at the nest. But in general, something that would cause a North American bird to have a heart attack and die on the spot, a Eurasian or Siberian bird, um, they won't pay any attention to it.
Yeah. I'd say.
Paul thinks that it's because of the, like very few people live in goshawk territory comparatively in the United States. This is just what he thinks. This isn't what I.
Paul who?
Paul Elia.
Oh, okay.
He thinks that there's very few people that live in goshawk territory in the United States comparatively to Europe.
Mhm.
But if you stop and think about it, it doesn't hold up with the tundra birds out in Russia. Nobody lives there.
Yeah.
But are those birds calmer, though? Do we know that for a fact? Because there's like almost no information on those birds. Or very limited.
What do you
Well,
think,
that's the thing, because we don't know the origin of some birds. I know the first bird that I flew, I called her Anador because her parents came from that region of Siberia, the Anador River,
Yeah.
and that whole that whole place.
What was your experience like with that bird? What was she like?
She was a she was a monster. The first jack she took, I wrote a poem about it in my book. It's called "Why Don't You Stay?" And we were in Nebraska and couldn't find jacks, and this was her brown year. And my friend Woodrow and we got up at 3 a.m. and we drove 4 hours to Kansas to a field that I knew had jacks. And um, first jack got up, she didn't even leave the fist. The second one, she left the fist and flew at it and turned around and came back. She was a little under 49 ounces.
Jeez, dude.
And then the third jack got up, and in the poem I said the jack got up and was racing away, and she whispered in his ear, "Why don't you stay?" I mean, she smothered him.
It's nice.
That's good.
Yeah, so
that's beautiful. I got to read that poem. I remember that poem.
Be the first poem Casey's ever read.
Dude, that poem, Why Don't You Stay? I mean, when you said the title of the poem, I mean, I just immediately thought like that's a Longwinger poem. It sounds like that to me.
Yeah. No. Read that. Why don't you stay?
Yeah.
And that's something else. And I don't have any numbers to back this up, but back in when Vic started breeding birds, he was the only one at the time that had Siberian birds and Finnish birds, and I kept his books on the pairs and the breeding and the weights and stuff. And Mark Mowgli's bird, she flew at like 44 ounces, and she would take jacks hundreds of yards away. They'd be dead when Mark got there. And I had the same thing with Atlanta once I got her going. But she had great old big feed. Mercedes flies at 44 ounces. The first jack, I may have to tweak her at 43, but after she's rolling, I can fly her at 47 ounces.
Jeez.
But I don't see goshawks that size anymore.
Yeah. That's a good point because I hear stuff from people. Oh, my buddy flies a finished goshawk and it's 1,500 ounces. I hear this stuff all the time, and I'm like I don't care what anybody says. Like I'm to the point now where I want to see you put the bird on the scale. I want to see it say 1,500 grams.
Exactly.
I want you to pull it off the scale, walk into the field, and catch something with it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't. Otherwise, I don't care because the biggest bird I ever flew, and I was flying her slightly heavy, was the Karen bird with all the duck hawking and squirrel hawking videos. She was 1,300 every day. Every day after what?
I'm just messing with you.
Every day after work, 1,300 grams. I'd catch whatever I want, no problem. Zero problem. Huge bird.
What's that? 43, 44 ounces?
Like 47.
1,200 is 42. I go from that.
Yeah, she was a big bird. And then I was probably flying her a little heavy, like her field control wasn't so good, but she was just a machine. So it didn't matter to me. I would just fly her at that and it didn't, and it was fine. But everybody that's like this 1,500 thing, I don't believe it. I don't I'm sure it exists somewhere in the world maybe, but I've never seen it.
Not that's my point. Not anymore. I hear the same things and then I look at the bird and I'm thinking I was in Lubbock and this guy's flying I said, wow, he's flying his goshawk around 47 ounces and my 43 ounce gosh is way bigger than her. How can
right.
How can that be?
Well, some of them look bigger. So Daryl, that's another question I have for you because the body structure of an albinos goshawk is completely different, right? Or that's just we're making that up in our head. They're longer. The feet are different. The wings are different. It's different, right?
Longer, slimmer, and and people got fascinated with the word albinos. I'd rather have a bulldog myself, a beauty otis.
Yeah.
Because I want jacks pinned to the ground.
Yeah.
I don't want drug all over and I'm running up and diving on the pile.
Right.
I want it immobile by the time I get there. And at my weight and the speed at which I travel, that's a must.
Right.
You get no help from me when there's
yeah.
Know that going in. But that's the thing. The beauty otis is much bigger, broader, and thicker, but there is no mountain range separating them, and they are commingling in Russia. So it's for example, 50% of albinos birds are white in the wild,
right,
and 30% of beauty otis are white.
Okay.
And I flew. Anador was like powder blue,
Ooh.
and as she got older, her whole after like her third or fourth molt, she was like a checkered chicken.
Okay.
It was really distinct. Well, I flew her sister the next year, and she was white as snow, and both the parents were blue.
Powder blue.
It's powder blue, and they had one. I had two chicks that year. One was powder blue, and the other one was white. Same parents, same clutch. So there's no mountain range separating albinos birds from beauty otis, and there's about 3 or 4 other subspecies in Russia. So there's but in the book, The Birds of Russia, that Arthur wrote, that he said that albinos was the largest form.
Okay.
Which is contrary to what I've read elsewhere. And when Vic's first birds that he brought in, they were beauty otis. They were thick, and I don't see any. I don't see any like that anymore.
Yeah, it's just so I flew a couple beauty otis, like Finnish albinos beauty otis crosses, and then I flew, and then I went from that, and I got my hands on a pure albitus that came from Moglich, three times removed. It was a third hand bird.
Yeah.
And it was a completely different bird.
Yeah.
Like it was like on the glove, like significantly taller.
Yeah.
And the legs were longer, the toes were long, everything was longer. Yeah. It was just completely different. And then like the Beautyoides is like stocky, kind of like a red tail, like thick.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
You know, I had a conversation with someone, and they were talking. They said, you know, the albitus are more like bird catching. Maybe they got slimmer toes than the Beautyoides, but I'll tell you what, I don't see any difference in the foot strength.
No, yeah.
Based on what happens to the jacks.
Oh yeah.
Because both of them, the Finnish, the albitus, and the Beautyoides. I mean, locking up a jack is it for me.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Yeah,
never done it.
Oh, you got to get out there. She'll smoke a jack.
I gotta get out there.
They say that every generation in captivity gets smaller. That you import wild parents, they're bigger. Their young are going to be smaller.
Yeah, I think.
I don't know what it is. If it's nutrition.
Well, it's that, and it's also a little bit of used car salesman. A guy comes and says, "I want a cross-eyed sheepdog," and the guy says, "I got one left. He's tied in the back, and I'll let you have him for this." So that's the same thing. You know, in the beginning, when there wasn't a lot of breeding, if you had a goshawk and you could breed her and get some young, you'd breed with whatever you could get your hands on.
Right. Yeah.
So there was a lot of Czech birds and Austrian birds, and they would cross with whatever, and sold based on what the guy was looking for.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, because that's a huge thing, and that's something Seth Roy, he's a sponsor of the show. He's a personal friend of mine, and that's something that he talks about a lot. Is because if somebody says they have Finnish goshawks, you know, if you don't really have a direct line from where they came from, who bred with who, you really don't know what you're getting.
Right. You know, and I say this, like I said, I kept Vic's book, and Seth has that same stock from Vic to Lance, to Seth. So I know those birds, and I know that stock. Now Moglich has good birds as well.
Oh yeah, he does.
To me, it doesn't make any difference if you got a goshawk. The only thing is, I want whatever I pay for.
Yeah.
If I'm looking for a Beautyoides, I don't want to have Czech, half Austrian bird.
Yeah.
I want the real deal.
Yeah.
And if not, tell me that. I'll still get it and catch a game with it, but I just want to know what I'm getting.
Yeah, I agree, and yes, Seth has a funky bird this year. It's like 3 different things that he just kind of made for fun, and it's a machine, an absolute machine. And there's nothing wrong with the bird. Like a goshawk, if you put the time into it, you'll get whatever you want out of it. Yeah. But like this is my thing, and this is something that's like super interesting to me because like the German goshawk, the Finnish goshawk, the Russian, like, can you look at them and can you tell the difference? Can anybody tell the difference?
It would be hard. I wouldn't want to be in a contest and they say, okay, here we got the author of Understanding Goshawk, and he's going to look at these birds and tell. No, I wouldn't want to do that. But I do know this, that the German birds and Austrian birds are smaller than the Finnish birds, and they have much bigger feet.
Interesting.
I had a German that had the biggest feet I've ever saw, and that bird that I saw on the film, to catch the white-tailed jacks, Tim Kimball ended up with that bird, and I saw her, and she was like a 38-ounce goshawk, huge feet, bigger than my fin, and she was very good. The larger Finnish birds, I think I could take a stab at, but it's difficult.
Do the German birds, do their eyes turn red?
They do.
Okay, and the Finnish birds do not. They stay.
No,
okay.
Yeah, they stay like a yellow.
Okay, so that's kind of like something where if you're talking to a breeder, can I see the parents? And if they have red eyes and they look like a European barring, you can kind of be like, okay, he knows what he's got. He knows what he has.
Yeah,
because you see all those videos from Europe and pictures from Europe. Those birds, they're like, they look like a fin body wise, but the eyes are red.
Yeah.
So that's okay. So that's something you could kind of tell, I guess. It's just like, and Seth, Seth and Lance and and Vic, I'm sure it was about like the stock, like let's keep it like what we have and let's make sure we keep the lines pure. And Seth has birds that still have the bands that say Finland on it. So like you know what you're getting. Like you literally know.
Yeah.
But some of these other guys, I mean, like, and I'm not knocking them. I got a a 3/4, 1/4 this, and I'm having fun with it. I could care less, but it's like there's no way to really know what you're getting, I guess, unless you know the breeder and the breeder knows their stuff. I mean, it's just an interesting subject because there's so much discussion. Are the albitus birds as calm as the Finnish birds, in your opinion?
Yes.
Okay, so they're also very calm.
They are, and they're faster, in my opinion.
On a long shot.
On the long thing.
Okay.
They have a they have a different gear that you don't see all the time because there's no opportunity to see it. But if you ever see it, you recognize that, and they have to. They're like gerfalcons in that in some of the territories that they're in, the prey sees them. They're just out flying the duck or out flying the ptarmigan or whatever it is.
That's insane.
They have to.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the stories, like the stories that I've heard through like the grapevine of like Lance going over there and like trapping birds and getting these birds from those guys, like I would I'm not a wealthy man, but I would pay good money to experience that, seeing wild, going up on a ridge and seeing wild albitus goshawks coming in.
Well, no, I don't know about the albitus, but I know, I mean, and I don't know if the film's still on YouTube of, and it's illegal in Finland. They're shooting them left and right there. Which is oh gosh, it's a travesty. They're the scourge of game farms and private. Yeah. But this guy had a room full of birds that he had trapped, just all in there together, and they went in and netted them and brought them out. Humongous things. I imported a bird 1 year, a Finnish bird. She was I guess she died before I got to fly her. She was at Fred Fogg was keeping her for me, and he was building a new mule, and I came back from a trip in July and chased her down in the mule, and she overheated and died in my truck on the way back home. But she was she was a monster. Had really big feet, and I couldn't wait to to get a chance to get her out west.
What year did you import this bird?
It was before you had to be part of a co-op.
Mm.
It was
now it would be just ridiculous.
A nightmare. Yeah.
That would be a $10,000, $20,000 expense right there.
I would never do that. No.
We're hoping that some things change with the current administration, that importing gets a little easier.
Yeah, I don't know. We've had that wish for several times, but some people don't have any problem. Mark doesn't have any problem. Birds that have to come through New York, we got a problem.
Right.
Interesting.
But out on the West Coast,
on the West Coast, move.
They have it easier.
Really?
The bird that I imported, she went into quarantine in New York. I drove up, got her out of quarantine, brought her home. Then I get a certified letter and a phone call that I'm going to be charged with violation because the crate she came in didn't meet standards.
Of course.
Yeah, and I didn't, build the crate. She came from the UK, and before I called and I offered to come up with the crate and have them inspect it and make sure it was right, and I was going to send that over, and they said, "Oh no, that's not necessary." So I had to have the NAFA lawyer, fought my case for me. But yeah, they tried to get me on that, and so I said, "I'm washing my hands of importing."
Well,
yeah, it's a pain in the neck.
Did you guys see today that the Trump administration wrote an executive order to end, well, they called it sunlighting, all these federal programs like the Eagle Protection Act, the Endangered Species Act, the Migratory Birds.
It was because some of these regulations were preventing some coal companies from operating, and I think the purpose was supposed to be to have more fossil fuel places up and running. So.
I'm sure our boy Donald wasn't thinking about falconers when he made that executive order, but I'm wondering if we can take advantage of that situation.
Don't know.
We got Daryl. We got a guy on the inside there. I don't know if you know that. We got good old Bobby Kennedy in there on the inside. We got a man on the inside, man. We got a direct line to this guy.
Supposedly, it's the Eagle Protection Act.
When Connecticut was getting there, I was in Massachusetts. I was president of the Massachusetts Club then, so I went to Hartford and testified along with Bobby and Kent Carney and a bunch of folks to get Connecticut legal.
So I wanted
That's a mess over there.
Yeah.
It's a mess. Connecticut's a mess, man. They need some help.
It still is a mess.
Yeah.
Daryl, I wanted to ask you, I don't hear much about it, but in your book, there's a lot of art from Japan. They obviously, we know they have a tradition of falconry, and it appears they use a lot of goshawks. So the Japanese goshawk, I think they look pretty different. Personally, they're really dark with some really striking yellow eyes.
Yeah, they are. Now some of those birds are migrating down from Russia, but they're dark. There's a piece on video, and it's of a goshawk chasing a squirrel. It's got a real dark cap. It's real nice to look at.
Viral video, huh?
And is that in Japan?
There was the pictures in my book. Those came from Aaron Gott, falconer from Maine. He got a grant to travel the world and experience falconry.
How do I get that grant? How do we get that grant?
And so he took those photos, all those photos of Mount Fuji, and those guys. Those came from Aaron Gott from Maine.
Wow.
Yeah.
Has anyone ever gotten one of those birds in America?
Not that I know of.
That would be really interesting.
If I got one of those goshawks, man, it'd be a lot of work because there's no way I'm flying that bird unless I'm wearing full samurai gear, dude. It's the only way I'm flying that bird, bro.
Yeah.
A katana, the little hat. That's it. That's it. It'd be a lot of work.
Game too. With the dense population in Japan.
They spend considerable time, manning them, which they've been doing for thousands of years.
Yeah.
So we wanted to ask you about your time as NAFA president.
This is we're a controversial podcast in terms of NAFA.
Yeah,
because we've had some open discussions with former officers, and we've weighed both sides, and so you can speak freely here. There's no, we're not on any side or the other here.
Yeah. What's your question?
No, whatever it is that you want to say. No, go ahead.
In general terms. So how did that come about? What year were you NAFA president?
I don't recall. I really don't.
Okay.
Let's see.
Was it was the 90s, I guess?
Yeah, I am. Let's see. I have to think which goshawk I had. Anadar, Candy. Yeah, I can't remember the years, but I was the Northeast director for 2 terms, and then I was the vice president under Brian Millsap for 2 terms, and then I was NAFA president for 3 terms for 6 years.
Wow, a long time.
So, and I was membership secretary. I was a database and computer guy, so I wasn't the actual membership secretary. Yeah, so I had. So I don't know. I probably had 12 or maybe more consecutive years of service for NAFA, and yet I didn't receive the Primus Award for service. How can that be?
Well, what is that?
Evidently, I ruffled the wrong feathers there. I guess
that's not, Daryl. From my personal experience, that's not very hard to do. To be honest with you, it's not hard to do.
They seem very sensitive over there at NAFA.
Yeah.
Do you feel like they're doing a good job of getting things done?
Well, to be absolutely honest with you, I don't have a clue. I am a honorary lifetime member. I was voted in for that, and when I left as president, I had a sour taste in my mouth, and I never quit supporting the organization, and I received all the publications, and I've attended NAFA meets, but I kind of wash my hands of the politics of the deal.
Well, I don't want to.
Yeah.
If it's something you don't want to talk about, that's totally okay. But I have to say, I'm curious what the sour taste in your mouth was about.
Well, NAFA was, in my opinion, an old boys club, and I rocked the boat in that respect.
Okay.
I thought it was not a monarchy, and people weren't entitled to, although it felt like that. So, that sounds like a disgruntled former president airing grievances or whatever. And some of that may be true, but I thought that while the organization did a lot of good, a lot of people weren't aware of the inner workings and how old boy club it really was.
Okay.
And so I wasn't popular with some folks.
All right. Yeah, I've heard some things. I'm buddies with Mike Dupuis, so he told me a couple of things that it wasn't the best situation over there, and there's some trouble, and it wasn't, so. And listen, we said like a couple things on here, and we had like a bunch of people from the NAFA brass like reaching out to us over it, and I'm like, well, come on and talk about it. And they're like, no. I'm like, all right, well, I'm like, okay, I'm like, we can have an opinion. Like, I'm not a member of NAFA. Like, I don't have any, if you're doing a good job, I'm going to support you. But if you're not even willing to come on and have a conversation about anything, then I'm not going to bend my knee to you. You know what I mean? I've told this story a million times on the podcast, but we had it wasn't that big of a deal, but we had a really great day in the field. And the Northeast director, he was like, "Oh, that looks like a lot of." He was looking at the pictures on social media, and he said, "Oh, it looks like a great time. I'd love to write about it in my my report." And then I'm like, "Okay, great." I gave him all the details, and then like a couple weeks later, he messaged me back, and he goes, "Oh, you guys aren't members of NAFA, so I can't write about it." And I was like, "Okay, fine, makes sense." But it's just weird. It's just like like you said, it's kind of like you got to be cool to be a member. I don't know. Listen, I'm not.
Well, no, I don't think you have to be cool to be a member. All you got to do is pay your money and sign up.
Well, yeah. No, I guess, but I'm just saying, like,
no. I get what you're saying. I think the organization is necessary, and I think without it, we aren't where we are today as far as access to birds and good regulations of flying. We got it better probably than most anybody.
correct.
But it's an organization, and there's politics involved in it. And I felt obligated because I was just in love with falconry, and the fact that I got to do the thing that I love most in life. That led me to be Northeast director and NAFA president. But on the other hand, I have no use for the inner workings and politics and that kind of stuff. So I'm like I said, a lifetime honorary member. I'm thankful and proud of that, and I support the organization. And I'm going to go to the NAFA meet this year. But as far as the politics of who's doing what and that, I steer clear of of all that stuff.
Yeah,
That's wise.
I think that's I think that's wise for everybody. It's politics and all that crap that gets a little ridiculous.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for talking about that. Is there anything else like memorable you'd like to talk about NAFA, or could we just change the subject?
Yeah, no, we can change.
I'll say this about
All
NAFA.
right.
I think they
Fair
should
enough.
welcome criticism, especially from members. I'm a member. I'm a paid member. I want to see NAFA move on some of the stuff that's happening right now, like we talked about with the Eagle Protection Act. I think it's ridiculous. I've said it before that American raptor propagators cannot breed golden eagles in captivity. That's just, if they can do it in England and they can do it in Canada and they can do it in Mexico, there's zero reason why we can't do it here. So NAFA, get on that.
Correct.
Well, the thing that prevents us from doing it is the Eagle Protection Act.
Yeah, and apparently that may be going away. So let's do it.
Yeah.
And, even if you don't have interest in flying eagles, I think all of us as falconers should have interest in furthering falconry and opening access up to different species.
I'm a girly boy when it comes to golden eagles.
You're scared of them?
No, man. I held one at the Raptor Center in Charlotte before I was a falconer. One of the first birds I ever held was that eagle they had down there. And she just started squeezing. And I said, "Oh well, we're going to have some urine leakage here pretty quickly if we don't get some relief." Yeah.
I've been out hunting with our buddy Titus, and
I got a thing from Titus last night.
Really?
Oh yeah, I get videos from him all the time, and I say, "Titus, I want to see the whole thing. I don't want to see the cloud of dust and the whole thing rolling around, and then you get up there." I said, "And I want coyotes. Come on."
Yeah, we're trying to get him on the show, but we can't get a hold of him.
Yeah, I'll hook him up. I'll talk to him.
Oh, we'd appreciate that.
Tell him to hit up his old buddy Aaron, man. Me and him had Thanksgiving dinner together. Tell him he's breaking my heart.
I think that'd be a fun one if we could get him on just to talk about all that stuff.
Oh gosh, go. It'd be entertaining. Yeah, he caught he had the crowned eagle out night before last. I think he got 3 jacks with her.
Jeez, that's so cool.
He puts a hurting on those jacks.
Now he had a red tail. Well, listen, I'll tell you what. That he had a red tail, I was the greatest squirrel hawk ever born because Titus bagged her on squirrels. He lived on the golf course. He owned the Greensboro National Golf Club, and Titus lived there, and he trapped squirrels left and right. And I think it was the 16th hole, there was a one tree and a pond. So Titus would let that squirrel grow and he'd get up in the one tree, and he'd have his red tail back in the woods and pull her over. And so anyway, when he moved out to Kansas, I got out there and I had the goshawk. I had a chamber raised bird I just got from Vic. I'd given her a few bag pheasants, and I told Titus, I said, "Listen, when you go out tonight, I need a volunteer." He said, well, I'll get you one." So he went out that night. He came back. He had a jack in there. The red tail got it, and he got it. He got it right off there. I had a fresh jack. I had this big thing like you tip up to let quail loose.
Yeah.
I had one built jack size. So I put that jack in there, went out with my bird, popped it open. That jack took off. She called it. I gave her 4 bag jacks, fresh ones, before she got her first one. She was a made jack hawk before she got the first jack.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because Titus would get them at night. I said, and sometimes the volunteers wouldn't make it. They'd bleed out during the night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard somebody was telling me that jacks are not as hardy as you would think they are.
Well, the skin, you could skin one with your hands.
Yeah.
They're a handful for a bird. If one is proficient, they got to tie him up.
Yeah.
You get both feet in the head, and you're subject to be kicked with those hind feet. And one good kick in Aaron, Larry Dickerson, from former NAFA president from Statesville.
Oh yeah, my buddy.
He had a big red tail, and she caught a jack, had both feet in the head, and got thumped in the chest twice. And the next day, she was laying down she had internal bleeding. She made it, but it was it was touch and go.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's jacks, cottontails, most dangerous game you can chase. At least in most of the country.
Yeah.
Right, Daryl? Right. Do you agree with that, Daryl?
What's that? Cottontail?
Yeah. I mean, you never hear of a bird dying squirrel hawking. It's always when they're chasing a rabbit.
Listen, I had one goshawk that flew a squirrel to a hole in the bottom of the tree in the graveyard in Brockton, Massachusetts. And I said, "Thank you, Lord. He didn't get to that squirrel."
Yeah.
Damien Fulch is a falconer from Massachusetts, and he had a North American bird. And one of the best flights that I've ever seen with a goshawk was this bird chasing a red squirrel, which she did not catch. But the flight was tremendous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you hawk squirrels any?
Daryl?
I was just. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say on that subject, Daryl. That's kind of controversial. Squirrels and goshawks. What do you think about that?
Well, I don't think it's controversial. I think the goshawk is the best bird for any quarry.
That's right. Agreed, there.
I'm a scaredy cat, so I don't fly them.
Oh, come on. Don't be so scared. That's what they're...
I'm a scaredy cat. I saw a tearful get his leg almost bit off. Former Ed Help, may rest in peace, was a falconer from New York, and he and I were in South Dakota out at Vic's, and we were flying pheasant in this bottom, and he always flew his bird out of the tree. And so the bird was in a tree, and we see a huge fox squirrel on the limb below it. And the bird's just looking at it. And I said, "Well, what in the world is wrong with this bird?" So Ed called the bird down to the lure, and the hallux was just hanging off. It had tangled with that fox squirrel. And it was never of any use anymore after that.
Jeez.
Now, granted, this was a spot squirrel. And with my first red tail, I caught a number of squirrels with him, but yeah, that's a good flight with a goshawk. Somebody else's, not mine.
God, Daryl, come on, man. That's their
holes in
preferred
our
quarry,
idea.
man.
Listen, they're living on them.
I know, that's my point.
They're living on them in the wild, and once they get good, they don't get bitten.
Yeah.
They either control it or let it go and come back and catch it, and that's the name of the game.
Shit.
With somebody else's bird, Mercedes don't fly them. I got 4 in the freezer, and I'm gonna chop them up to look like cottontails before I give it to her. I don't want her to get it in
Daryl, come on. That's
I'm gonna put a rabbit head on that squirrel before I put it out.
You gotta put a bunny tail. I gotta cut the tail off and do a bunny tail on it.
Yeah.
No, man, the squirrel hawking with a goshawk is superior. It's the best.
Oh, okay.
It's awesome. It's just you got to be careful. You definitely got to be careful, though. You got to be careful.
I was hoping to get up to New Jersey and Pennsylvania, but I wasn't able to make it this year.
Next year, come on, let's go.
We'll see you up there next year, and Casey's going to be down here for the North Carolina meet this year too, Daryl. So
that's a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, when is that? That's in January.
It's going to be Martin Luther King weekend.
Okay, yeah.
Man, that was a great meet, man. The North Carolina people are all so nice, man. Everybody down there is so nice. Everybody up here is like a dick.
Where are the rabbit fields at, though?
I got them around, man, but you and I both know rabbits are tough down here.
Bro, that's not what I saw.
Listen, I went not the last meet that I went to, and we walked this field. It was supposedly a rabbit field. We walked and walked and walked. My knees gave out, and I gave my bird I forgot the guy's name. I said, did you mind hunting with her? I've got to sit down. He said, are you serious? I said, yeah, go right ahead. I said, I trust her, so if she baits, let her go. No bait. I think Aaron was the president and promised me a rabbit slip. I'm older rabbit slip, as a matter of fact.
I can get you rabbit slips.
Daryl, we found the spot, and it's we flushed more rabbits, Daryl, than we knew what to do with. My bird was at a certain point, she chased so many that she just sat there and watched them run. Because there was, I mean, I'm talking how many slips, not rabbits, Aaron, but how many slips?
Oh, it was dozens.
100?
It was definitely dozens, but
Daryl, 100 in a strip in this game warden's property. The strip's like maybe 400 yards long by 70 yards wide, with little roads cut into it with all brush.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking rat everywhere. If anybody took a step, like if the group moved forward, 4 rabbits would flush in 3 different directions, and then the bird would chase. It was nuts. It was out of control.
It's not any better than Swedesboro.
It's not any better, but it was just like, I was being told there's no rabbits in North Carolina, so I'm going down there.
That spot's an anomaly. You're sitting here talking to 2 North Carolinians. We can tell you that is an anomaly.
I don't know. My first time down there, I saw more rabbits than I could count. So I don't know.
You've been here once and you're a pro.
The point is, Daryl, if you come down here with a goshawk and she knows what she's doing, well, I think we could get it done. I mean, it was hard though. It was rough. I mean, it took my bird. I got like 30 slips
in that spot too.
Oh yeah, like 30 slips before she caught one. It was nuts.
They're not going to catch it off the fist. It's too thick. They got to be in the tree.
Yeah, well, see, I don't fly out of the trees until after the NAFA meet, or after my trip out west. I don't want the bird.
That's good.
Flying a mile to the nearest tree.
That's good.
She misses the jack. I want her to land on the ground and then come back.
That's good. Yeah, that's smart, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I had, so after that, then I have no problem putting her in a tree.
That's smart. Very smart.
All right, Daryl, we're at over 2 hours right now. We appreciate your time, man. Is there anything that you feel like you need to get off your chest that you didn't?
No, I've enjoyed it. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, man.
Thank you, Daryl. Seriously, this was amazing. Super honored to have you. Seriously, a lot
Yep.
of good insight.